Okay, so now we're going to be looking specifically at this saddle bracket tutorial, which starts on page 9 after those user-defined templates are all set. Okay, so we're going to be creating this drawing right here. Now I'm going to kind of skip ahead, and they have a starting and opening SolidWorks, which we already have. And that starts on page 411. And if you need to, you're going to want to open up the ribbon and such, enable that command manager, but that should be open for you guys at this point. But we're going to go over here and we're going to start by creating our base feature. Okay. And our base feature, and if you do want to kind of peek back at the original, if you would, isometric drawing, we're going to be creating this surface right here and projecting it back, not the rounded part in the front, just up to where the center of that rounded section would be. So, so we're going to create this profile right here. Okay. So I'm going to kind of follow along with their tutorial. I'm going to start with SolidWorks. Okay. Now, something that I do on a regular basis is I like to save clicks and be a little efficient. And we've done this already. The book tends to say, I'm going to do a sketch first, and they go right into sketch. I like to go into the feature that I'm going to be actually doing for that sketch. So instead of going directly to sketch, what I do is I say, I'm going to do an extrude boss base. And then they say, oh, you don't have a sketch. So they go right into sketch. All right. And that way, when I exit my sketch, it goes right into doing that extrude and filling in the information. Okay. So again, just saving me a little bit of time. So I'm going to go in underneath the extrude boss base. I'm going to select my front plane, which is consistent with what they're doing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the profile that we see. So underneath here on page 412, here is the profile that I'm going to going to sketch. And then I'm going to add in the dimensions that we see here. So again, on page 412, this is, I guess, step number 4, we're going to create that profile. Now I'm going to start my profile at my origin here. So I'm going to do a line, start it right at that origin. Make sure that your line is nice and horizontal. Don't worry so much about sizes here. Just make the sketch look similar to what they have. And if you see some of those blue dotted lines and they seem to make sense to do, go ahead and do that. But do notice that this surface right here is not in line with this surface. Okay, they are offset from each other. And then I'm going to hit my green check mark and escape to end that line command. Now you'll notice that each one of my lines here has horizontal and vertical lines. So that means I did a good job of kind of keeping everything, you know, where it was supposed to be, which is good. If something doesn't have your horizontal or vertical relations, then make sure that you kind of fix those. Okay. And remember, you can go back up here and you can add a relation if you need to, right? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by adding in my dimensions. So I'm using that illustration on page 412. So smart dimension. I always like to start with my longest dimension. So in this case, it seems to be the length. I'm going to click on it and it is going to be 3.25. There we go. My height dimension is 1.75. Okay. Then I'll start here, 0.5 overall from one side to the next here. This is going to be 2 inches. This one is 0.5. Right. This height, I think, is 0.5, if I'm remembering correctly. This height from here to here is 0.75. And then you'll notice that I still have a blue mark here. Now I'm going to show you something. I'm going to hit F, so it's in the middle. If we look in the book, okay, you're going to notice that they do 1.75 on the left for the, you know, the column going up, and then they do another 1.75 for the column going up on the right. Now, depending on the design intent, if you believe, and you would know this information as a designer, if you believe that these are always going to be in line with one another, then what I would suggest is keeping just one dimension for 1.75 and adding a collinear relation between those two so that they stay in line with one another, okay? But if you believe that, no, we want to have those as two independent heights, then you would dimension them as two separate dimensions, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the collinear option. And I am going to go back because to me, it just kind of looks like a part that's going to probably have them both at the same side. I have no reason to believe that, but that's what I'm going to do. So, so I'm going to get out of my dimension or hit escape. I'm going to go down to add relation. I'm going to click on one of the lines first and then the other line and make sure that they're aligned and you don't grab that midpoint. Okay. And then down here, once these are highlighted, you're going to notice that these are our options. And we want those to be collinear, meaning that they're on the same line. And that way, I only need that one dimension to define both of those, what the heights are. So then I can hit OK. And if I left click over here, now notice that went to a black line and I'm now fully defined because I added that. So now again, these will change together. So I'm just going to put in 2 so you can see they both went together. Going back to my 1.75 so that it's the same height. Okay. Questions about that? All right, so kind of trying to illustrate how to use those relations and kind of the power that you have, but then also the reason why you would use it or not use it. Okay. All right, so our sketch looks good. We're fully defined. We can now hit exit sketch. If you went in under the extrude boss base function like I did, then you're going to see this. It jumps right over to, okay, now let's extrude this. The way that they want you to extrude this is a new way that we haven't looked at yet. It's going to be mid-plane, okay, mid-plane. So right now it's the default is going to be blind. We are going to arrow down and we're going to go down to the bottom where it says mid-plane. Okay, mid-plane. So I'm going to click on that. Now what this does, and I think they have a nicer illustration in the book, you're going to notice that on page 413, this illustration right here, our sketch is right here in the middle. And what mid-plane does is it takes the overall width and it splits it in half. And it goes half on one side and half on the other. When we have symmetrical parts, this becomes nice to do, okay? So we're gonna do mid-plane here. So go back to SolidWorks, we're on mid-plane, but now we need the overall distance. This is the overall thickness, not the dimension on one side or the other. So our overall thickness or extrude is gonna be 2.5, okay? And we're gonna hit enter, and you should get something that looks like this. It's split it evenly on both sides. That's what mid-plane does for us. So again, when we start to see axes of symmetry or planes that are symmetrical, you're going to probably use this more and more. Okay, so then I can hit OK because that preview looks good to me. And then I'm just going to click off of it. And you should have your model look something like this. Okay. Now, before we move to the next, we're going to expand out our feature. We're going to left click on our feature. We're going to right click to rename it. And we're going to rename it. Let's see here. I think they just call it base. Yes. Base. Okay. So again, going forward, good practice is to not leave those generic names. We want to name it something that's going to make more sense to what that item is. So it's easier to navigate your design tree. Okay. All right, so this is a good place for us to do our initial save. So let's go to File, Save As. And now we're going to navigate to where we are saving our parts. I have in my SolidWorks class, I did create a Module 2 directory. You don't have to go that deep, but if you wanted to kind of keep them organized, it's not a bad idea. So this is going to be saddle bracket, and I have to call mine 1. So I already drew the saddle bracket. It's in there. Here we go. Okay, so now you should see the name up here change to saddle bracket. Okay. And there's no asterisk because we now have saved and nothing has changed since our last save. Okay. All right, so now we are ready to go to our next feature. So our next feature is going to be on the following page. We are going to add, I'm going to kind of scooch forward here. We're going to add that rounded front. Oh, Katie. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, if it ever asks you to rebuild, go ahead and do that. Rebuild is kind of like a regen. It's fine now? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it may once in a while ask you to do that at different points. It's not going to be an exact science, but if you see that green and red, it just means that what you're seeing may not reflect exactly what those dimensions are. So rebuild it and it'll kind of update it for you. Okay. So we're going to be doing this rounded front end. Okay. So you'll notice that they are on if you would, the bottom surface of our saddle bracket, and we're going to extrude it then up, okay? So I am gonna go back to SolidWorks, and we are gonna do an extrude boss base again. So we are gonna extrude though from this bottom surface, and we're gonna go up. So you just wanna kind of rotate this, anticipating that you're gonna have to select that surface. So I'm gonna go underneath on an extrude boss base. I'm gonna select that bottom surface. Okay, and now I'm looking directly underneath it. It doesn't look like a whole lot, all right? But you are gonna notice that our origin is over here on the left-hand side, right in the middle of that part, okay? So I am going to tie this circle or radius to have its center at the midpoint on this side, and then its radius is gonna go to that edge. We've done this before. So we're simply gonna go to our circle command, and it wants us to place our center. So we're gonna kind of hover over this line, but we're intentionally gonna find that midpoint of that line. And once it activates, we're gonna click on it. And then we're gonna click on the endpoint when we get that little orange circle. Click there, okay? So now what it's done is it's tied the center to the midpoint of that line, and then the radius to the endpoint of the line. And now I can hit the green check mark. And if I zoom out here a little bit and click off of that, the circle is black and it says fully defined at the bottom of my screen. So that means I'm fully defined. And if I do a little bit of a rotate here, notice that I sketched on that bottom surface. Now you might say, well, why am I leaving the circle rather than doing it, this way? Remember, if I do my circle and I do when I do my extrude, I have that check mark in there where it says merge. Why can't I think of it? Merge elements or merge result. Thank you. What it's going to do is it's not going to double that material in there. It's going to now be a solid. Okay. So it doesn't change anything. And it's just kind of a little bit easier than adding an extra line and trimming and stuff like that. So we're going to leave that as a circle. And now what we're going to do is when we exit our sketch, because we went in on the extrude boss base, I'm going to pan over and I'm going to rotate. It is going to want to now extrude that circle. Okay. Now it's remembering midpoint from the last time I was in here. What do you think we want to change this to instead? So if we arrow down here, we could do up to surface. Yep. Are there any others? There's another one we could do that wouldn't be as good as up to surface. What would that be? We could do blind. We could do blind and enter a 1/2 inch. But if we do blind and we enter it as 1/2 inch, it's not going to be then the same thickness as that other part of that section that's sticking out. Okay. And we anticipate that there'll always be a 1/2 inch, right? The circle is not going to be different than the flat part. So up to surface is going to be the best one. And now you're going to notice if we look here, it's wanting to send it down. We actually want it to go up. So we're going to toggle the direction here, and now it's going to go up. And we have to pick the surface now. It's asking us, it's looking at, see that little pink thing in the front there? It wants us to pick the surface that we want to go to. And here's the surface right here. We want to click on that. And then now it gives us our preview. Yes, that material's on the inside, but again, make sure that merge result is checked. And if I hit OK, it's set. There we go. Now we're going to expand that feature, left click, right click, and rename that feature to circular end. Thank you, Katie. Circular end. There we go. And again, it's not a bad idea to do a quick save. Here, we don't have to go back to save as and navigate to the directory because we already did that. It'll remember. We can just hit save, and then it takes the asterisk off of our file name on top because we're all good. All right, fully defined. Looks good. All right, now the next section. Wants us to do a little bit of changes. So I'm going to go underneath on page 418 here. Okay. What they want us to do is they want us to show all the annotations so that you can on the model, when it's in its like isometric view here, we have the ability to show all of the dimensions, including any of the features that we changed. We can do that when we select on, for instance, a sketch, but it only shows the sketch dimensions. It won't show the extrude or the extrude cut or the extrude boss face. So if I go back to SolidWorks over here, in order to show all of those dimensions, I'm going to zoom out here a little bit. We're going to go to annotations. We're going to left click on that. Then we're going to right click. Okay, so don't expand it out. You're just going to you're going to select it first with your left mouse button, and then you're going to right mouse button. And you're just going to go here and you're going to say show feature dimensions. Okay, toggle that on. And now what's happened is we see each one of those dimensions. We see the bottom here. And then if we go over here, you can move these by left clicking, dragging them out. We then see that bottom one because it came from the bottom side. That's why we're kind of looking at it like that. So this gives us the ability to see all of the dimensions in like this isometric view. We can now click on any one of those and we can change them right here. So let's do that. We are going to click on, double click. I'm going to hit the right there. You don't need to be in the dimension. You can just be right here in your features tab. We have these dimensions on. I can double click on any one of these dimensions and I can change it. So we want to take the 3.25 and just change it to 3. Notice it got a little bit shorter. And then we're going to do the same thing for the 2.5. We're going to change that dimension to 2.0 or just 2. Okay, and it got a little skinnier now. Okay. So that's a way that you can actually change dimensions without having to go into the individual sketch or the individual feature to change it. All right. Not a bad idea to do a quick save here as well, because now we're going to go forward with these dimensions. Okay. All right. Now we're going to add the hole. Okay. So if we go back underneath our camera here on page 419, we're going to be adding the hole here. We're not going to do the hole wizard this time. We are just going to do the extrude cut. And our hole is going to share the same center as that outside radius. And it's going to be a diameter of 3/4 of an inch. So if I go back to SolidWorks over here, I am going to turn these annotations off because I don't want to work with them. They're nice once in a while, but honestly, I don't leave them on. It might be something that it might be a personal preference. If you like that, you can leave them on, but I like to turn them off to kind of keep the screen clean and easy to read. So now we're going to do an extrude cut this time. We're going to click on that. We have to select the surface that we want to do our extrude cut. So we're going to click on that surface right there where we want the hole to go. And now we're simply going to draw our circle. Now, here we want to have that circle share the same center as the circular end. So what you want to do is you want to activate this end so that you hover over it, it turns orange on its perimeter, but it also highlights the center here. If I then hover over that center, it's not going to really select that center, but if I get close to it, I can click it and now it snaps to that center for this hole. Okay, so I'll do that one more time. I'm going to go into the circle. I'm going to hover over the edge. That center highlights or kind of presents itself. I'm going to click on that. Now it shares that same center and I'm going to left click to get my radius and I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to smart dimension my diameter and that's going to be 0.75. Oops. 0.75. All right. And then now if I click off of that, It is fully defined. Why do you think it's fully defined? I centered it on an existing entity, right? It shares the same center as the circular edge, and that was already fully defined as well. I don't need my X and Y dimensions here because I attached it to something else that was already in the model fully defined. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So, so when you can do stuff like that, or you want to share a center or an axis, we want to do that, right? Okay, so now I can exit my sketch because it's fully defined. And control middle mouse button, I'm panning it back over, and I always like to rotate it because I want to see what direction it's going in. So it's remembering a blind 2.5. So I don't want it to be that. So let's take a peek underneath here. What do you think we could use here as an option for this extrude? Through all would work. I could do through all. What else could I do? We could also do up to next. Yep. And what else could I do? I could do up to surface as well. If we do up to surface, you would then have to turn this over and select that surface, and then it would go through that section. Any one of those three. Do not use blind because, well, I shouldn't say do not use blind. If you know design-wise, it's always going to be a through hole, which this looks like it's going to be, then you always want to use one of these. But if you know it's only going to be to a certain depth, then the blind is appropriate. Okay. You don't want it to go with anything else. So I'm going to hit OK here. And again, any one of those is going to work. We're going to left click. We're going to rename that tree item. And that is going to be a 3/4 inch hole. Enter. And we're going to expand our sketch so we can see that it's fully defined. And I'm going to kind of pull this up here. Okay. All right. So that's where we're at right now. We have one more feature to add. One more feature to add. So let's catch ourselves up in our tutorial. So we already did the 3/4 inch here. Okay. We did our extrude cut. They did through all. We showed that you could do one of three that would work well for that. And now we're here with them. Okay, this is on page 421. We are going to turn the page and we're going to be adding now our little cut in the middle. Okay, how we're going to do that is we are going to sketch on this one, on this first upright, and we're going to sketch a rectangle and use the dimensions that they have here. Now, we are going to do up to next as only as our extrude. Okay. And then we're going to do a little bit of an edit. So, so we're going to do up to next and call it RECT or rectangle cut. So I'm going to go to SolidWorks. I'm going to kind of rotate this a little bit. I know this is going to be an extrude cut again, because I'm going to take material away. Yes. Like one big rectangle. And go down. You could. And do a blind depth, you could. Yep, I'm going to do it the way they're doing it in the tutorial. There's always multiple ways of doing a lot of things, right? And then it's just a matter of picking what, you know, you feel is going to be most representative of the design intent that you end up having, okay? So what Katie was referring to is, could you do a rectangle on the top here as one and then just go down? You could. I'll just follow along with the book. This is another method, another way to get this the same thing. So we're going to do an extrude cut here. I'm going to go on this surface and we're going to use that rectangle function. All right. It's a corner to corner. So I'm going to start here on the upper left-hand corner and just kind of go down again, just sketching it. I'm going to now add my dimensions and I'll use the dimensions that they're giving us here. So smart dimension from one edge to the other. It's going to be 0.5. And then the width is going to be 1. And the height is going to be 0.75. I usually like these off the part, actually. All right, so now that should fully define it, which it does. All right, so my sketch is on this face right here. Okay. So we are now going to exit the sketch. And the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to do up to next. Okay, they want us to go up to next. So that means it only goes to and through that first, I'm going to call it the upright. Okay, so we're going to hit OK. Now what we're going to do is we're going to expand out that sketch, fully defined, and we are going to rename it. Okay, we're going to rename it that RECT underscore cut. So it's a rectangular cut. Okay. And that gets us to the bottom of page 422. That's where we're at. Now, they want us to look and they want us to do a change like, oh, let's change that rectangular cut and change it to through all. So kind of demonstrating like, if you make a mistake or you change your mind about something, how do you go in and change it? So going back to SolidWorks over here, we've done this before. We want to change this feature, this cut, to go all the way through. So we're not going to edit the sketch. We're going to edit the cut, the actual feature itself. So we're going to left click on that. We're going to go up to edit feature because that's where we gave it to up to next. So instead, we're going to do a through all instead. And now you're going to notice that it extends it to and through that second upright. Okay. You could also do up to surface by turning it around and selecting that surface as well. Okay. So make sure that each one of these features has a name, and also that each one of your sketches is expanded out and fully defined. Okay. All right. Let's do a save on this because I believe we have all our features in place. Yep. Oh, no, we don't. We don't. Okay. So we are going to do a design change here. We are going to do a design change. This is on page 424. So let me go back underneath here. The design change that we are going to do is we are going to add this fillet in the front here. Okay. There are two ways that we can do a fillet, but they're going back to the sketch and they're adding it in as a fillet sketch or a sketch fillet. We also have fillets at the feature level. Okay. I'm going to show you both ways. I'm okay with you doing it one way or the other. So I'm going to show you both ways. You just have to get it in whichever way you find you like. So I'm going to show you first how to put a fillet in at the feature level. Okay. I'm going to tell you this. This is actually the best way to add fillets. Okay. Usually when you have fillets, they're going to be maybe multiples, especially if it's a cast piece. And then you put them all in as one function because a lot of times all the fillets are the same size or a number of them are. So to do that, you're on the feature tab and you'll notice that there is a fillet command. So I'm going to click on fillet and opens up this, place where you can add all your stuff. And the place that you want to look at is the fillet parameters. And all we want to put in here, right here where you see 1 or 0.1, this is going to be the radius dimension. In this case, our radius dimension is 0.25. It's 1/4 of an inch. Enter. Okay. Now, to put the fillet in, we are going to, I'm going to zoom in here. We need to click on the edge where the fillet is going to occur. Do not click on a surface and a surface. You have to click on the edge, kind of like the edge that we're converting from being 90 degrees or sharp to a fillet. So I'm going to click on that. So make sure just the edge is highlighted and we're going to click on that. And you're going to notice that it adds the edge up here, and you can then continue to add more edges if you wanted to. All right. We only need this one. So we're just going to put the one in there, but you could continue to populate that box. Now they're giving us here a full preview so we can kind of see what that's going to look like. And if we like what we see and we have everything that we need, we can just hit the green check mark and now we have a fillet. The fillet then is going to be added to our design tree in the order that we add it. Okay. So that's one way of doing it being done. Okay. My personal favorite and really the best way to put fillets in. That way, again, if you have multiples, especially, you got them all in one place rather than in different sketches. Okay. But the other way that we can do it. So I'm going to delete this. So if you want to leave yours in as the fillet, go ahead. I'm going to delete mine out. The other way that we can do it is we need to find where we would actually add it as a radius here. And that's going to be in the very first sketch that we created. So I'm going to left click on that sketch and I'm going to edit that sketch. Here is that corner. And we're going to go up to, we're in our sketch ribbon right now. Oh, it's right here. Underneath the ellipse or the oval there, you're gonna have sketch fillet. So we're gonna click on sketch fillet. Here again, fillet parameters, we want to change this to 0.25. You can do it before or after. But this time, we need to select the entities that create the vertex for our fillet. So we need to click on the vertical and the horizontal. And now it's going to give us a preview. Okay. And you're like, yeah, it looks good. So there it is. Then you can click one more time. And now you're going to notice that we have that fillet in there. Okay. If I exit my sketch, upon exiting my sketch, you can now see that fillet in there as well. Okay. Either way. But like I said, is once you kind of, start doing them, fillets most often, it might even have a blanket note on a drawing where like all fillets are 1/8 of an inch and there's a bunch of fillets. Then you can click around and do them in wherever they're at in one command by using the fillet on the feature tab, as opposed to changing it in each one of the sketches. Okay, Katie. Okay, it should. Hold on. Okay. So now you're going to notice we have our fillet in place. Let's look at our tutorial, kind of catch ourselves up. All right. So, so we're at the bottom of page 425. We turn the page here. We now have a model that looks like this. On page 426, they're talking about the feature manager design tree and how we can show, instead of feature-based, we can show it history-based. I don't think this is something you're going to use all the time, but it may come in handy sometimes, especially if somebody wants to look at, or if you want to look at a model that you didn't actually create, but you want to see the order that they put things in. You can actually change how the design tree looks. And that's what they're illustrating here on between pages 426 and 427. So what we can do is, you'll notice that there is this, the part name. So right up here, this is the part level, so that you'll notice that this is kind of like an outline. At the top here is our part name, and then kind of indented underneath are different levels of, history, annotations, material, the planes. That's kind of like where everything starts, and the origin. And then underneath origin is when we start creating things. Now, these will be in the order that we create them, but technically we created the sketch 1 before we created the extrude. And we created then sketch 2 next, and then the circular end. And so it doesn't give us the true history, if you would, in order that we created this. So we can actually list it that way. So if we wanted to, we can left click on our part and then right click, and we're going to go to tree display. I'm just hovering over it right now. And what you can do is you can show flat tree view. So let's click on that. And now when I left click off of that, notice how our design tree changed down underneath origin. It's listing it in the actual order that we did things. So the sketch before the feature for each one of these. So instead of having to expand out each one like I have you do, if you wanted to show this instead, you could do that without having to do that. All right. But I'm used to, again, it's a kind of a personal preference, but it also can aid you. For instance, if you want to know what is the order that things were done in on maybe a model that you were unfamiliar with, you could kind of expand those out without having to do it manually. Okay. So again, kind of a personal preference, but I'm going to go back to the traditional way, and I'm going to toggle off show flat. And I am going to expand each one of these out because I want to make sure that they're there. So when you do it, but if you wanted to do the flat tree, you can do that as well. Either way, because it'll still show the sketches either fully defined or underdefined. All right, so I'm going to do a quick save here because we've been manipulating things around. And now we're ready to look at adding material and seeing the mass properties. This is probably the new part now, right? Up until this point, we've kind of done these things as we went along, but now this is going to be the new part. And this is going to be what you're going to be required to do here for your module 2 practice problems for this. But then also you're going to be doing this very same thing for the module or the assignment number 2. Okay, so let's take a peek. To add material, you're going to notice underneath the part here, if we go down a little bit, right above front plane, you're going to see a place where you have material. In brackets, it says not specified. We want to specify a material, okay? The material that we're going to specify is going to be an aluminum alloy. So we're going to left click on the material. We're going to right click. Left click is just to select it, and then right click is to now edit the material. Okay, edit the material. Now what you're going to see here, and depending on what yours looks like, you're going to see the SolidWorks material list here. We are going to go to aluminum alloys and expand that out. And we are going to select 1060 alloy. Okay, so let me do that again so everybody knows where it's at. We're going to left click on material, right click, left click on edit material. And then we're going to go down to, we're going to expand out aluminum alloys. And we're going to pick the very first one, 1060 alloy. Okay, that's just the type of material that it is. Over on the right-hand side, because we're in English units with our model, we want these to also be English units. You may have to change it from metric or SI to English IPS. Okay. Once you have that, you can just hit apply and then close. Now you're going to see that instead of it saying material unspecified, we now have 1060 alloy in here, right? Okay, so we've now assigned a material to this saddle bracket. Okay, now from that, we can get information like volume, weight, its mass. Okay, so that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to go over to the evaluate tab, and then up and to the right a little bit, there's mass properties. We're going to click on that, and this window comes up. You can resize if you want to. If it's super huge, you can make it about like that. Okay, but now what we see here is you're going to notice that it starts here. It lists the saddle bracket right away. And then down here, it's going to tell you what the density is, the mass is, the volume. The mass and the volume is what we're interested in. Now, it drives me crazy, but whatever. In English units, we do not work with mass a lot at all. We work with force, with pounds, with weight. Okay, weight. So when we ship something, we want to know what the weight is in pounds, right? In the metric system, they do everything in kilograms or grams. They do everything in mass. Their units for weight would be the Newton, but you don't really hear Newton a whole lot in the metric system. There's reasons for it, but anyway. So what they did here is, this drives me crazy. I used to teach physics as well, so this is like nails on the chalkboard for me. But when we're in the English system in SolidWorks, it says mass equals, and it's 0.56978 pounds. Ugh, that's the weight. So although our problems are going to be asking us for weight, it's going to be listed as mass. So that's okay. The units for weight are pounds. That's how we know this is actually weight. All right. Nothing to do with that. But what I want to do is I want to show you when you do your screen snip for this tutorial and for your assignments, you are going to position this so that I can see the full model. Okay. So I have that over here. I kind of have it sized so that I can see my full model here. All right. I want to see this box open. Okay. I want to see your file name up on the top, and I need to see your design tree expanded out. So this is all the same. You want to add this window now. Okay. So we're going to have a bigger screenshot. So I'm going to do my Windows Shift S. You can do the snipping app if that's what works best for what you're using. And you're just gonna go through that upper left-hand corner, the design tree, and then all the way over so you can see what you need to see. Even if you would go like this, as long as you can get everything in, I'm okay with that, but kind of go over like that. All right. Now, for me, I would take this and I would put this in my Word doc, and that would be my screenshot for this module 2 practice problem. Okay. If you're doing the screen snips, then it's just going to be, you're going to save this, is it a PNG or a JPEG? And you're going to save it, probably giving it, you know, saddle bracket tutorial or something like that. Okay. But include the mass properties here, that window that comes up. Okay. That's the significant difference in these last 4 problems, because you are going to have material to add. And then this window lets you know what your weight and your volume are. Okay. All right. So once you're done with that, you can X out of that. It's always a good idea to do a quick save to be sure you don't have that little asterisk up there. And then we're done with our saddle bracket. So does anybody have any questions before I end our recording?
For the assignments, we also want to remember.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'm going to do a short little video as well on an overview of the assignments, and I'll give you that detail. Okay. So let me stop this recording. Just going to peek at the box here. I see a nope. Awesome.